There is a particular kind of creative exhaustion that is hard to name. Ideas still appear. The desire to create is still there somewhere. But when it is time to sit down and actually make something, there is a strange emptiness, a fog, a sense that the inner spark is dimmer than it used to be. The mind calls it burnout, or decides maybe the inspiration is gone. But often, what is really happening is quieter and more subtle. Creative energy is being drained, slowly, by habits that seem harmless. These habits usually do not look dramatic. In fact, many of them are rewarded by the modern world. They look like being informed, being social, being engaged, being efficient. But over time, they pull attention outward, scatter focus, and thin out the deep stillness where real ideas grow. Creativity is not just the ability to think of something new. It is the capacity to stay with a thought long enough for it to become something real. Anything that constantly pulls the mind away from that stillness weakens this capacity. There are at least 5 silent habits that quietly drain inner creative power. They rarely feel like the problem. But when they are named, something clicks. Patterns become visible, and what is visible can be changed. The first is the reflex of reaching for a screen immediately after waking up. There is a very short window in the morning when the mind is naturally soft and open. The body is still between worlds, not fully in the logic of the day, not fully in the blur of dreams. In that space, images, intuitions, and half-formed ideas rise gently from the subconscious. Many of the most original connections come from that quiet place, before the noise starts. When a device is grabbed within seconds of opening the eyes, this window is hijacked. News headlines, messages, notifications, numbers, opinions, and images rush in. The nervous system, still tender from sleep, is thrown into reaction mode. The mind is no longer asking, "What is alive in here today?" It is forced to ask, "What is happening out there that needs a response?" This morning digital reflex feels like a small thing, just checking something quickly. But the cost is that the first contact of the day is not with inner life, but with external stimulus. The day begins not in creativity, but in consumption. From that moment, the brain is trained to be reactive instead of generative. It starts scanning for updates, not listening for insights. Over weeks and months, this pattern erodes the relationship with inner images. The mind becomes used to being fed from the outside. Silence feels uncomfortable. Slowness feels wrong. The space where a new idea could have emerged is filled with the latest posts, messages, and notifications. A habit that was meant to stay informed quietly teaches the brain that empty space must be avoided, and emptiness is exactly where more original ideas are born. The second silent habit is over-explaining ideas before they are ready. There is a special energy that appears when a new idea is felt for the first time. It is fragile, raw, electric. Inside, there is an urge to talk about it, to tell a friend, a partner, a colleague, to see their eyes light up, to watch them say, "That's brilliant." Talking about the idea gives a quick rush of satisfaction. It feels like progress. The project begins to exist in words. But something subtle happens when a vision is shared too early and too often. The pressure that was building inside, the creative tension that pushes a person to sit alone, to write, to paint, to code, to design, is partially released through conversation. The brain receives a small reward, a dose of dopamine from being seen as someone with a great idea, even though nothing has been built yet. It starts confusing talking about the work with doing the work. This is not about never sharing anything. It is about noticing the line between sharing enough to stay accountable and sharing so much that the inner necessity to create is diluted. Every time an idea is explained in great detail before a single step is taken, the mind rehearses the feeling of having accomplished something. The story becomes more polished in words, but no new page is written, no new note is played, no new line is drawn. Over time, there can be a strange collection of almost projects, ideas that were exciting to describe at dinner, in messages, in brainstorming sessions, but that quietly died because the energy they needed was spent in explanation rather than creation. The habit seems social and harmless. In reality, it can leak the very pressure required to bring something into form. The third silent drain is comparison disguised as staying inspired. The modern creative world is full of windows into other people's work. Feeds show finished pieces, behind-the-scenes clips, analytics, milestones, announcements, awards. At first, looking at this can genuinely inspire. It widens the sense of what is possible, offers techniques, colors, structures, ideas. But with time, a quiet shift often happens. Attention moves from "this is beautiful" to "this is better." From "this gives me ideas" to "this proves I am behind." From "how interesting that they made this" to "why haven't I made something like this?" The brain begins to use other people's timelines, styles, and numbers as rulers against which to measure its own messy, nonlinear process. The problem is that only the polished outer layer of their journey is visible. The false starts, doubts, discarded drafts, and long empty days are hidden. The comparison is between someone else's curated surface and one's own unfiltered interior. It will never be fair. And the more this gap is stared at, the smaller inner ideas feel. Instead of sitting with the awkwardness of a rough draft, the mind reaches again for the feed. More scrolling, more looking, more measuring. Each scroll promises a quick shot of interest or distraction, but carries the quiet poison of not enough yet. This slowly erodes the courage required to stay with something imperfect long enough for it to become good. The fourth habit is the microtasking trap, living in constant small tasks and fragmented attention. There is a belief that doing many things at once is efficient, especially in a fast digital environment. Several tabs open, multiple projects, chats, notifications, a bit of this, a bit of that. It looks busy. It feels like moving. But deep creative work requires long stretches of undivided attention. It asks for sinking below the surface. Every time the mind switches from one task to another, writing to checking messages, editing to responding to a notification, designing to quick browsing, there is a residue left behind. Part of the attention is still entangled with the previous activity. The new task does not receive a full presence, only what remains. This attention residue means nothing gets the depth it deserves. Microtasking replaces depth with thin layers of focus spread over many things. At the end of the day, there is a sense of having worked hard, but not having touched anything very deeply. The projects that require sustained focus, the book, the album, the long video, the invention, stay in the background, postponed, because there is no time or no energy. When in reality, the time and energy were sliced into pieces by constant context switching. This fragmented way of working is often celebrated as being adaptable or responsive. But creativity is not just the ability to respond quickly. It is the ability to stay long enough with a question, an image, or a problem that something unexpected can emerge. Microtasking steals that possibility by keeping the mind on the surface of many things instead of in the depths of one. The fifth silent habit is the neglect of mental stillness. In many modern environments, silence is treated almost like a threat. Moments without stimulation are immediately filled. Waiting in a line becomes an opportunity to check a screen. Sitting on a bus is filled with scrolling. A quiet evening is covered with background noise. The mind is rarely left alone with itself. But original ideas often arrive in spaces that, at first glance, look like nothing is happening. Walking without headphones, staring at the ceiling, sitting on a bench, washing dishes, lying in bed with no device. These are moments when the conscious mind relaxes just enough for deeper layers to send up images, associations, and insights. What looks like boredom is often the surface of something new trying to come through. When stillness is constantly avoided, the channel between the conscious mind and the deeper creative layers becomes clogged with noise. Inspiration doesn't vanish. It just doesn't have space to be heard. The brain becomes used to consuming content made by others instead of listening for content that wants to arise from within. Creativity becomes imitation, not discovery. Neglecting mental stillness also has an emotional cost. Silence is where unprocessed feelings, unresolved questions, and uncomfortable truths can appear. If those are scary, filling every gap with stimulation becomes a way to avoid them. But the price of this avoidance is that the same energy that could be used to create is spent pushing these inner messages away. Making peace with stillness is not only good for ideas, it is good for the whole system. When these 5 habits are placed side by side, a pattern emerges. The morning starts in reaction to external input, instead of inner listening. Ideas are talked away before they solidify. Other people's outputs and numbers continuously shape the sense of worth. Attention is scattered into dozens of small movements. Silence, where deeper currents move, is covered with noise. No wonder creative power feels thin. The system is not broken, it is just overextended and underprotected. The path back is not about perfection or radical withdrawal from the world. It is about small, deliberate shifts that protect the conditions creativity needs. For the morning, this might mean allowing a brief buffer before touching any screen. Even a few minutes of just sitting up, breathing, looking around the room, letting dreams fade, noticing what feelings or images are present, can begin to repair the relationship with inner life. For some, keeping a notebook by the bed to capture any fragments before the world enters can be enough to reconnect with that early softness. For the habit of over-explaining, it can help to choose 1 or 2 people only and share just enough to feel supported, not so much that the tension disappears. Some ideas can be held quietly for a while, developed in private, protected like seeds under the soil. The satisfaction of seeing the work exist in the world can replace the temporary high of talking about it too soon. For comparison, boundaries matter. Curating what is consumed, choosing a small circle of creators who genuinely inspire rather than trigger paralysis, limiting time spent staring at metrics and highlights, and remembering that every process is messy behind the scenes can all soften the poison. Shifting the question from, am I ahead or behind, to what feels true for the work that is trying to be made here, changes the reference point from others to the inner compass. For microtasking, creating protected blocks of single-task time, even if they are short, begins to retrain attention. During that block, one project is chosen and everything else is gently paused. The mind will try to escape. It will remember other things. That is normal. The practice is to bring it back, repeatedly, until depth feels possible again. For mental stillness, deliberately inviting small pockets of nothing into the day can feel strange at first, like a muscle that has not been used. A few minutes of sitting without input, a walk with no device, a quiet moment looking at the sky, a pause before responding. These are simple acts that slowly open space for authentic inspiration to surface. Over time, the fear of these empty moments fades, and they start to feel like home. Creative power is not only a talent, it is a relationship with attention, with time, with inner space. When these 5 drains are reduced, even slightly, there is more energy available to stay with ideas, more courage to create imperfectly, more patience to see something through. The spark that seemed lost often returns, not because it disappeared, but because it finally has somewhere to burn. Subscribing keeps these gentle, deep reflections close for the days when inspiration feels distant and the pull of distraction is strong. Liking this video helps it reach others who quietly believe their creativity is gone, when in truth it is only being drained by habits they have never named. Sharing it with someone who says, "I feel empty, but I don't know why," might give them language for their own experience. And in the comments, naming one of these 5 habits that feels most familiar right now can be the first step in stopping the leak and slowly reclaiming the inner creative power that has always been there.